Hello, can you hear me okay? Good. I know it's the first session after coffee, so I'm going to try and keep it super engaging, but the more that you participate with me and engage with me, the more interesting it is for you. So my name's Ellie, I work at Oodle Car Finance, and I am the head of people operations. And you'll notice in the title of my talk that it's about making your recruitment tech stack work for you. That's because I'm not here to tell you what to buy or how to buy it. Ben's going to cover the how to buy process in a minute. But I'm actually here to talk to you about your tech stack and how you can get the most out of it. So a bit about Oodle's journey so far. Let me just get the clicker working. Got a bit clicker issues. Perfect. Cool. So Oodle was founded in March 2016 in Oxford, and we're Oxford headquarters. And we are a fintech for car finance. So we have been on a really, really incredible growth journey. Since March, we have then grown in December 2019 to 300 people. We are now at 380 people, so our growth has been exponential. And in January 2019, we opened our London office, which is a tech hub for us. And I joined, and Joanna, our head of talent acquisition, joined, and she's here today. And that's also when we introduced our ATS. So we use Greenhouse, but obviously this isn't about what we're using, it's about how we've made the most of it. And we've really seen how that has benefited us in the year that we've had that in Oodle. And what we've done with Greenhouse is try to optimize our tech stack around it. So we've really gone under the hood of what it can do and tried to look through every single piece of the settings menu and find out how we can make the most of it. So since that time, we grew exponentially, and it really requires a lot of process improvement and thinking about that candidate experience, because going from a recruitment inbox and a spreadsheet to an ATS is a huge process, and we really didn't want to let the candidates suffer through that. So when it comes to TA Tech, I kind of think you're one of two people, and this introduces the theme for my talk, which is a Stranger Things theme. So I think you're either the Winona Ryder or the nerd, the tech nerd, and I'd be really interested to know who feels a bit more of the Winona Ryder in their team when it comes to tech. There is no shame in it. And who is the super techie nerd in the team? So if you were the first person, I think you need to look around the room for the people that were the second person and make friends with them, because they can help you out here. But there's no shame in being either thing, and making the most of your tech stack is about finding the right people as well. So speak to your IT team. If you've got developers, speak to them, because it's fine not to know everything about tech. What's worse is when you don't know that you're that person, because that's where you come into a bit of trouble. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is small steps. I'm not talking about big changes that we've made. I'm actually talking about lots of small incremental things that we did. And it's really about how to make the most out of what you've already got, or how to introduce small things and look at the impact of what you're doing. And also how to use automation as you grow, and that's been a really key thing for us, so that our recruiters and our tech team can spend time on actually adding value rather than administering lots of different platforms, because we've bolted on lots of stuff and not really known why we're doing it. So I tried to look for an infographic on the TA tech landscape, and this is what I found. So these are all of the ATSs that you could use. No doubt there are more, but here are some main names that you'll probably recognize, some that lots of you probably use. But when you actually look further than that, there's all of this stuff that you could be using. And I'm sure some of it is really, really valuable. But also a lot of it is probably a lot of noise. And when I look at this slide, all I see is noise in the market. And certainly in my inbox, and I'm sure lots of you, get a lot of requests from companies trying to show you the latest development in recruitment technology. And there's some really great stuff going on. And I'd always encourage you to test the market, demo things, see what you like about providers. But actually, It's really mind-blowing and it's really confusing, and it's really hard to tell from that quick demo what that tech is actually going to bring to your recruitment. So lots of people talk about their tech stack in recruitment, and they tend to make a bit of a face and they tend to not like it, and I've spoken to people here today who have made exactly that face. And you chose that tech or you've inherited that tech, but ultimately we need to be the owner of that tech because it's our candidate experience. So if you don't like it, either change it, optimize around it. When was the last time that you got on the phone to your tech provider, asked for an account review, or spoke to them about what you don't like, past speaking to their support team? Something that we've done before is get on the phone to our HR system and actually spoken to the CEO and said, look, this is what we don't like, and we've seen tangible change because of that feedback. So if you don't like your tech stack, what I'd say to you is you can't necessarily polish a turd, and don't just add on loads of bolt-ons to it and go, well, we've got a crap ATS, but we've got video interviewing and we've got candidate assessment and we've got psychometrics that we really like. If it then doesn't integrate with your ATS, where all your candidates have got a really bad experience where they're being banded around lots of different technology, they've got to sign up, put different information in it, it doesn't remember where they were in the process, and ultimately that's your team that have got to administer all of that technology. So what I'd really encourage you to think about is how your tech is working together, because ultimately that's what's going to create a really slick candidate experience, and that's what really brings me joy and my team, is when I can say I've just automated that whole process and my ATS is integrated with this form that I want someone to fill in. And that, I'm such a nerd, but it brings me so much joy to know that I can integrate my tech, because that's then admin that we don't have to do. So if you think about your tech stack, think about how it can integrate, and you will get tech that can integrate out of the box. So Greenhouse, for example, has an integration section where you can see all of the different companies that they have actively developed in integration with. But they also have an open API, and API is a very techie thing that even I don't truly understand, if I'm honest. But what I do know is API will connect two different pieces of technology together. And that's all you need to know, because API is a connection that you need to leave it to the techie people to develop. But if you know what it can do for you, when you're speaking to your tech providers, you can say, what API access do you have? How can I integrate that with my other tech? Think about your HR system. Does that have API access, and how can you link the two? If you want a bit of a cheats way that is actually really great, Zapier is a lifesaver. So Zapier is a tool that is free up until a certain number of zaps, which is a fancy way of saying connections. And this is just some of the TA tech that it integrates with. So Bamboo's on there, Workable's on there, Greenhouse is on there, People HR. So there's some big names in the market that are using Zapier, and you can use that technology to trigger anything that it connects with within Zapier, which is over 1,500 different tools, including G Suite. So if you're a G Suite user, you can trigger from Greenhouse a Google form to go to one of your candidates. And that's all seamless, and you can test throughout the whole process. So there's no excuse for not thinking about integration with your tools when there are free tools out there that can help you. And if you're not sure, just speak to your tech provider and ask them, what do you integrate with? Do you have API access? But having that conversation can really open up what your tech that you already have can do for you, if you just know the right terminology and the right questions to ask. But once you've integrated your tools, you can then move on to the really, really cool stuff, which is automation. And I love automating things because for me, it means that my team don't have to administer so much. But automation needs to really add value. And when you start trying to automate things and you test them out, it can sometimes feel really, really crap, because it's quite a techie thing to get into, and when it goes wrong, you can tend to lose steam. But don't lose hope, because automation is going to supercharge your process and your candidate experience. But not all automation was created equal, and there is good automation and there is bad automation. So one of the examples that I really love is being able to integrate Calendly with my calendar and Greenhouse. And then when I want to book out a phone screen, I just send someone my Calendly link, which is an automated email going from Greenhouse. And they can book in a time with me for a phone screen that is directly linked to my calendar. It knows if I'm on leave. It knows when I want lunch. I can say if I don't want meetings on a Friday afternoon. And people just book in a time that suits them, pings into my calendar, pings into their calendar, and it's the perfect solution for me. Similarly, Ben, who is in the audience, and he's speaking next, at Oodle introduced this chatbot, which was for delivery drivers to go through a bit of an automated screening process to see if they really are happy to carry a parcel that weighs 30 kilograms, or they really are happy to drive this kind of van. And it means that candidates can interact with this technology without having to speak to a recruiter, and they can do it in their own time. So I haven't had to, when I'm booking in that phone screen, go backwards and forwards with a candidate and say, when are you free? And then they provide me with a load of times, and then I'm not actually free at that time, so I go back to them and ask them for more times. And that's a lot of engagement for not a lot of value added, and actually it's just taking away from what you want to do, which is have valuable conversations with candidates. And the same as with Ben's chatbot. He could have a recruiter do a phone screen and have that conversation, but ultimately, you've got candidates engaging with this at the time that they want to. And am I right in thinking, Ben, that candidates engage with this normally at like 11 o'clock at night? So you're not going to have a recruiter awake at 11 o'clock at night doing phone screens. This allows the candidates to engage, and it brings people through your process. And Ben's recruiters and my team can focus their time on actually speaking to candidates, getting the phone screens done, adding value, giving candidates feedback after their interviews, rather than administering lots of emails and going through a lot of pain just to get to that phone screen. So then you've got the bad automation, and this is where it can go really wrong. Who has received an email like this during their time? How does it make you feel? It makes you feel like just a number. And it doesn't make you feel very valued at all. And we all know that automation is happening. And we all know that most of the emails we receive, there's probably an element of this going on in the background. But it really hurts when you see it, right? And you just feel so aggrieved to receive something like this. And if a company sent this to me, I would immediately be thinking about how slick are their processes and what's going on in the background there. So what I'd say about automation is always test it before you launch it and see if you're getting any errors like this, because these are the things that people notice, and it leaves a really memorable mark on your brand. So how do you know what to automate? Well, a really fun day out for your recruitment team is to get them all in a room and actually map out your candidate journey from start to finish and map out every single touch point. And what I'd do is also think about which parts of that process are manual, which parts are automated, and then go through and map out where you could make tangible change. So something that was really important for me is what is manual or automated now, but if I automated it, what would the impact be? Because if it's ultimately not impacting a candidate, why are you doing it, would be my question. And it can indirectly impact a candidate, because if you're automating it to make efficiencies in your team, again, that is time that you could be spending speaking to a candidate and adding value. But always think about, what am I adding to the candidate experience when I add automation? Because the worst thing that you can do is end up with more of this just because you've automated it. And also think about, how can I make it better? So it's not just about automating it, but how can I make it a better experience that isn't just quicker, but more effective and adding value to your interactions. So what can you use to automate? Well, hopefully your ATS will have some level of automation within it, and if it doesn't, again, get on the phone to them and speak to them. What are they developing? What's on the roadmap? How can you add this in to what you're doing? But if you don't have that kind of tool, Zapier, again, is a really good tool for automation because it works completely from triggers and then events. So you can trigger one piece of tech to then speak to another piece of tech, but you can also trigger things within the same technology, even if they've not built that in themselves. So have a play around and just see what's possible. The same as Zapier, you've also got a tool called If This, Then That. And that is a very similar tool. It has pre-built recipes for you. So that's things that their clients are already doing that you might find useful. So it's not about having to be super creative. It's actually about thinking, what are other people doing that I can easily implement? And then once you get a feel for how that technology works, you can go back to the way that you've mapped your process out and see where you can add things that are unique to you. But the best thing about all of this is that all of these tools are free in their most basic form to use, and so you should be able to just have a play around with them. And there's no excuse for not giving it a try and seeing what it could add to your process, because when I go back to that big TA Tech landscape for 2019, all of that tooling is going to cost you something. And if you are going to invest in technology, you want to know what it's going to add to your process, but what if there's something that you could do to just create a really slick candidate experience? Once you've got this nailed, this is when I would be looking at what could I be doing for video interviewing, what could I be doing for psychometrics. But ultimately, if you've not got this nailed, what is the point on adding lots of shiny bolt-ons when you're not necessarily creating that great experience? So how we use it at Oodle, it's actually really simple, and I've got no shame in saying what we're doing is not groundbreaking, but what we're doing, we're trying to do really well. And that's what I'd focus on, is doing a few things really well. So one of the examples is when we go to a careers fair, we don't have a big prospecting tool or a big pipelining tool for graduate management. So all we do is we have a Google form, and we speak to a candidate, we encourage them to fill it in, and we ask them in that form to tell us what subject areas they're interested in. And then as soon as they submit that form, Zapier is going to send them an email that says, hey Ellie, I spoke to you at the Recruitment Careers Fair today, and I know that you're really interested in science, engineering, and technology, so as soon as we have a role in that area, we will let you know. In the meantime, if you don't want to go onto our ATS, just give us a shout. So it's a really friendly message, it's personalised, but it checks for empty fields, so if there's no field in that what you're interested in, it's not going to send it. So you're not going to get that, hey, applicant first name, if they haven't filled it in. Candidates can book in their own phone screen, so again, with Calendly, that's something that we have really seen an impact in our business of the time that we spend going backwards and forwards, and we do have a recruitment coordinator, but it means that she can focus on working on getting those final stage interviews booked in, and actually where you've got some heavy coordination to do, rather than focusing her time on phone screens that people could just really book in themselves. Automated scorecard reminders, so that is a feature in our ATS, but if it wasn't, there would be a way to automate it within Zapier. So think about how are you engaging not only with your candidates, but how are you optimizing for working with your hiring managers? Because the more that you can optimize this process, the more time you can spend with your hiring managers. And actually, this is something that you don't want to email them chasing for your candidate feedback. What you want to be speaking to them about is their recruitment pipeline or something that's more strategic. Automated offer letters. So as soon as we speak to a candidate, close down their offer, within 5 minutes, we can have their offer letter out to them with all of the information that we had throughout the process. Because we've got that information, why would we then manually spend time creating a letter and manually send that out when actually we can be really agile? When you've got an offer, you don't want to wait over 24 hours for your offer letter to land in your inbox. It's actually really reassuring for a candidate just to get that right there and then. They can then start getting really excited about the offer that you've just given them. Automated onboarding forms. So it's not the sexiest of automation, but it has made a huge impact on us. So previously, we would email people a Word document to fill out. It would kind of be fine, but it's not the most techie thing to do as a fintech company. Now, we automate sending out the onboarding form. When they complete it, we get an email to say that they've completed it. It adds a card to our onboarding administrator's Trello board for them to then follow through the rest of the process. And again, this has cost us absolutely nothing to make a really slick process where we know where a candidate is every step of the way. so adding cards to a Trello board. I've also, in a previous company, run recruitment through a Trello board where we didn't have money for an ATS. So we were that inbox and spreadsheets company, and instead of just making do with that, what we did was we added automation where you could ping candidates into a Trello board, share that private Trello board with all of the hiring managers, and they could move candidates through the process that way. Integration with third-party hiring tools. So we use it to API link into tools that we're testing out, and it's really easy once you know how to generate an API key. And if you don't know how, just get your tech provider to work with you, because they should be working with you on this stuff. You're spending a lot of money with them, and so it's completely reasonable to expect that they will give you something back. And we also automate a weekly update report for hiring managers. So it's all about the data that we're sending them, and rather than sitting and creating that data, we just have weekly updates that ping out, and then we can spend our time talking through the insights with the hiring managers rather than giving them the data itself. So that's a bit about how we use it, but that will be completely different to how you want to use it, because my whole point is that this is completely customizable to you. And it's really about going back to that process map and thinking, how can this benefit me? But this is how you're going to feel after automation. You're going to feel like you're just making the whole world turn, and it's automatic. And it's going to free up your time, which is so valuable as a recruiter, because I'm not sure anyone in this room can say that they've got loads of time to spare. I mean, you might do, but I personally don't. So when you think you're done with your automation and your integration of your tech stack, that's not how it works. Just with Stranger Things, when season 1 finished and you thought, where are they going to go with this? How can they possibly make these Demogorgons appear again? They've kind of defeated the thing, so surely that's done. They managed to bring out another one. And when you think about it, pretty much exactly the same thing happens. And yet it's great, and it's almost better. And then they do it again, and you think, how on earth can they make the same thing happen again and it still be better? And that is my tenuous link to automation and integration in tech. Because when you think you're done with all of this stuff, go straight back to the drawing board and do that candidate process map again and see what the next step is. Is there somewhere where actually you could benefit from a piece of recruitment tech? Because there's always something that you could be doing better. There's new technology coming onto the market, and you're never truly finished with these things. The same as Stranger Things is coming out with a 4th season, and I'm really excited for it. So if you're not a Stranger Things fan, hopefully you'll give it a watch after this talk. So the impact that we've seen, I'll be completely honest, we have only had our ATS for a year, and we're not as data-driven as we want to be as a team yet. So we've actually not got too much data to share with you, because we've not seen time of watching this impact build. But what we have seen from the small changes that we've made, which again are completely free, we've seen a 22% decrease in the days that it's taken us to offer a candidate after they apply. And we've also not invested a penny yet. So we've got that spend still to use, and we're really excited to see where we could start investing in really supercharging our candidate experience. But we've also had some really great feedback from candidates, and this feedback particularly is great for me because this was from a tech recruiter, and I know that we treat tech recruitment processes as quite harshly, to be honest. And she said, about your recruitment process, it's been refreshing, fun, and totally professional from start to finish. You can see why staff enjoy working there. And then another quote we had from a candidate, I can categorically state that my experience with Oodle so far has been outstanding. Truly, it is very impressive from a candidate perspective. That's actually a candidate that we rejected, so to have that feedback after a rejection was really great for us. And again, we hold ourselves to a really, really high standard, but candidates are holding us to an even higher standard. So to get that feedback has shown us that what we're doing must be right in some way, and we truly believe that it's not perfect. So feel free to apply to one of our roles and tear our recruitment process apart, but we really do try and do the best we can, and we really do try and make it as efficient and slick for a candidate. So key takeaways, I would always say start small. Just have a little play with the settings in your ATS. Go through every single page in the settings menu and see what your existing tech can do for you before you go out to the market, and talk to your tech providers, get on the phone, see what they've got to say for themselves. Focus on doing a few things really well rather than having 10 different things introduced at the same time, all these bolt-on products that you're not really sure what they're doing, but they're nice and shiny and Google use them, so they must be great. Start with automating the small stuff, so just a phone screen, see what impact that has. Does it work for you? Does it not? Try again, see what providers work for you, see what the impact is for you as a recruiter, not just the candidate. Integrate your platform, so ask about API access, get on Zapier, get on if this then that, and see where your tech stack could work better together, because ultimately, if it's not going to work together, you're just creating admin for yourself. Don't feel beholden to your tech stack, so don't be that person that says, oh, what are you using? Oh, we're using this, but we hate it. See what you could do to bring it back to your control. Either test the market, demo lots of different things, speak to the decision maker in your team, but don't just settle for rubbish tech in your team. And my final saying for you, integrate, automate, and iterate. Thank you.